In order to give context to this post, let me explain who I am and why the fuck I'm bothering sharing this information. I'm a 22-year-old male. Just finished my master's at university. I was about 12 when I was given permission to start using my dad's spare laptop, since his work gave him a new one every couple of years, and he thought I could use the experience of getting used to tech early on. When I got into high school, I got word from a group of stoners. Why the fuck they were talking about it, hell if I know. That people were accessing restricted parts of the internet, which held everyone's information. I went ahead and did some more digging online, found out about the dark web. What most of you know as the deep web, finding proxy sites as well as hacks that you could use via command prompts to mask your IP address and basically walk through a lot of locked doors. I spent the better part of my late teens doing this kind of stuff online, using a few online forums like Rad.dot to talk with people who were basically doing the same shit as me. I didn't have many friends offline, so yeah, online was a place for me, and I got pretty good at blending in. I had 3 aliases which I used, but only a close online friend of mine knew that they were all me. Nathan was my main link to the dark web, since he somehow spent more time on it than I did, even when the only thing I did other than ghosting with him was playing Halo with him on my friends list. What I liked about him is that neither one of us mentioned our last names or any real information, even though we both could have looked it up at any time and found pretty much whatever we wanted about the other person. That being said, I trusted Nathan more than almost anyone, and he knows more about this story than I'll be willing to admit on here. During uni, I roomed with a local dealer who, unknown to the educational board that expelled him, worked for me. It was fucking easy to order narcotics online, like MDMA and X, if you knew where to look. I even had them shipped to my dorm room's local P.O. box at one time, without anyone being the fucking wiser. I'd get the drugs online. My former friend would then use his real-life connections to sell them, since I didn't have any of my own. This was around the time I felt that I held all the cards, and no one could touch me if they couldn't track my IP. I was in my second year of my biomed course when I got into stupid shit. Scumbag pieces of shit would be sharing snuff videos online that would make even the most messed up pornography you've laid eyes on look like fucking white bread. This was why I only used links that I either found myself or more often the ones that Nathan gave me. We would spend days, literally days, just marveling at all the crazy shit people would get away with. Yeah, the government had shut down the main sites like Silk Road and Mad Onion, but those are like the only ones that idiots online seem to ever take notice of. Other hackers would message me on forums asking for sites to get weed and other drugs, which was as simple as pointing in a fucking direction. The university claimed to monitor internet traffic to stop people from doing freaky shit online after they heard people were hacking student accounts and ruining online schedules. But I guarantee you they did absolutely nothing to people who were actually doing it. Note, I'm not confessing to having done these acts. I just know exactly which individuals did. By the 3rd year, I had made enough money to have a long screen setup of my own, which made decrypting site details a lot quicker for me, since I could actually read over 200 bars without having to scroll through the tab. And I actually had gotten pretty good at it. I had been delving around some messed up sites, and to be honest, I'd even talked in chat rooms to some of the admins in charge of them. You'd be surprised how normal a child pornography site owner would seem if you didn't know that he also had a day job. I got more curious though. Fucking stupid of me. After nearly 10 years of seamlessly making my way around the dark web, deep web is more of a pleb term if you're talking with more experienced users, even today. I joined Nathan as well as a few others in a chat room, just fucking about and sharing some screwed up sites. This might sound weird, but for me it's a pretty everyday thing to do. Nathan and another friend were talking about some site that no one had managed to get past the encryption to, apart from one other person who's even more of a no-life than me. The rest of us are pretty sure he's autistic or some shit, because the site he shared with us was arguably the most vile thing I've ever laid eyes upon. For those of you still with me, this is why I'm posting this here. This site is the most cancerous and revolting sector from the darkest part of the dark web. It is a scar that I bear to this day, and it is one that I will never, ever forget. I'll warn readers again, this is not for the faint-hearted, and something that even the most emotionally numb people will not be able to deal with. I won't share the site URL since I don't want this post being taken down, nor do I want anyone giving it the slightest bit of publicity aside from what I have to say here. That being said, it did have a subheading in the HTML that I'll leave other people like me to have a look at if they want to. Most people referred to it as cold body. The autistic dude who was in the chat room earlier gave Nathan and I the encrypted URL for us, but he was too fucking giddy about getting through to the site himself to send us an encryption, so Nathan and I had to manually go through the whole process ourselves. We tried for hours. Nathan and I had been doing this for the entirety of our adult lives, yet we'd never seen any code like this before. Come to think of it, I doubt that the other guy in the chat cracked this by himself. Nathan and I both called it a night, so I left the command prompt open and went outside to smoke a joint. Nathan remained on the chat so we could play Anvil, a Russian crack of Halo for PC. But when I got back, his microphone was muted for some reason. For people like us who had nothing to hide from each other, we almost never muted our mics. I wait a few minutes, thinking maybe he's jacking off, or maybe gone to get something. Nothing. I don't think much of it, my brain too occupied with cannabinoids flowing through my bloodstream. I sat down and took another look through the code, thinking there was something I missed. I did. The code was completely different, completely unencrypted. I simply launched the URL on my PC Word for a while, until finally opening up about 20 windows across my 2 monitors, all of them scrambling code through a debugger that I had installed. Even with 32 gigabytes of RAM, my computer was making more noise than it ever did doing this kind of stuff. I thought to myself, shit, I'm going to have to OC my shit in the BIOS if I was going to have a shot of getting through, and I was not feeling up for it after smoking too much. I get ready to hard reset before my monitors turn off and back on at one time. This was when I started getting a bit paranoid and was thinking about just letting it go. I fucking wish that is what I did. The windows were almost all gone. Only 4 were still there, and 2 of them were normal deep web sites that the admin probably used to relay the IP address through. First site that I had seen do that. All of the text was a dark red and extremely primitive for a site that I thought would be at least a little more impressive considering its security. The main center window had only a small amount of text on the screen. If you have made it this far, you know what you were in for. If you still don't, you don't belong here. Even though I was feeling mellow, the text in sheer awe of what I was getting myself into pierced me with fear. A simple yes or no prompt popped up in the window. I accepted, ready for whatever awaited me on the other side. A chat room window came to life in the second remaining window. I was wondering what it was for. Perhaps another IP relay or a shadow app that hid the true nature of the site behind it. It simply stated insert name, as well as an optional password that I'm still not sure what was for. The fact that people might have accounts to this kind of site, looking back on it, is fucked up. I used my most recent alias Diablo. The hashtags are censored for obvious reasons. A couple more scrolls of red text flew up the window, and then it opened into an actual sort of chat room, like you'd see on Omegle or some shit. Except with this, there were no ads or color, anything besides the dark red text. The chat was a bit more advanced than the first window, which was now frozen and wasn't responding to any console commands that I was using on it. I have to say the feeling of finding this site in the first place felt pretty awesome. I couldn't wait to tell Nathan. That was until the chat window popped up with names. One that I recognized was his, using one of his aliases as well. I'd say about 36 people were in the chat room, no names that I can remember. And even if I did, I wouldn't dare reveal them. Not after this. I tried calling Nathan on my phone, but he obviously wasn't picking up. We were so fucked. It was stupid of us to delve this deep without even knowing what we got ourselves into. Users definitely had met before, as they immediately started posting messages to the window as me and Nathan remained silent. As they were casually talking about stuff, I was starting to calm down a bit. Maybe this was just a stupid exclusive cult website that talked about organizing deals or other dumb shit that I've found in the past. It all seemed so normal. So why all the obscurity? The first window, still blank and unresponsive, suddenly began uploading a video file of some sort. A snuff video, perhaps? It would make sense to hide one, but not this extensively, and the chat room didn't make much sense. I wish this stuff had been going through my head at the time, if I wasn't retarded enough to get stoned before going through with this shit. I felt tempted to ask the other users what the video was about, but I was afraid that it might give me away as someone who's not supposed to be there. Nathan hadn't said anything either, so I wasn't going to risk doing something suspicious like that. I got the guts to ask, "What are we all here for then, you cunts?" Trying to sound as eccentric and dim-witted as I could. I didn't get a response from them. As a matter of fact, no one said another word. Nathan stayed quiet, but I assumed that he noticed me in the chats as well now that I'd posted. The video had stopped loading and had begun playing, some more messages from the other users sharing their anticipation, as footage of a dark gray basement somewhere took shape on the screen. The resolution for the video was pretty awful at first, but rendered pretty well after about 30 seconds. I was scared shitless. No one else was in the house that I share with my roommates. Most had left for summer vacation, and I didn't head home for another 2 weeks. I was all alone in the dark, with little else but the ambient sound of whatever was happening behind the camera in the video. It stays like this for about 4 or 5 minutes. I spent every second of it staring at the screen, waiting for something to happen. Finally, a dude steps onto the screen holding up a whiteboard with foreign letters on it, as well as the word "cold body" underneath. The guy was fucking ominous to look at, pretty overweight, and what only could be described as a motorbiker's beard. The man spoke. I had no idea what he was saying at first. He was speaking in Chinese, I think, but I don't really know. I'm not a fucking linguist. Luckily for Nathan and I, the man had another person beside him who spoke broken English. "Hello, users. Welcome, Cold Body Show," I think he said. I was honestly more interested than scared at this point. This video looked like it could be something worth showing to the others. That thought never crossed my mind again. The man with the broken English bursts into tears and sobs out of nowhere. He sobs in front of the camera and jerks around in what I could only guess, sheer desperation. The man holding the sign yells at the guy in Chinese before another man enters the frame, puts a gun to his head. Before I could even realize it was a gun, the man fired. He didn't stop there. Pressing the barrel of the gun against the dead man's temple, he fired again and again. Each shot spraying blood and what I guess were pieces of the man's skull all over the place. Okay, so a shock video. Not much out of the ordinary here. That was until I stared at the chat window again. The users were talking about what they should do next. Users were all typing in different languages, but all of the English ones that I read said, "Shoot him again." I realized then that I wasn't watching some shock video or stupid snuff film that admins had hid between a wall of proxies. I was watching a live stream of people being murdered in front of me. We all were. I type into the chats, "You sick fucks, what are you doing?" But the texts weren't responded to. because so many people were spamming the chat with foreign text I couldn't read. Another person was brought out in front of the camera, this time already sobbing and trying to break free of the ropes that had been bound around her ankles and wrists. She was bare naked and covered in bruises and cuts. I didn't do anything but wait for the inevitable. The man shot her in the head and watched her body fall limp to the floor. People in the chat cheered and asked for more. Someone picks up the camera, positions it in front direction towards a metal table covered with some sort of bin liner. The woman's body was dragged by the hair into frame and placed on the table. What happened next, I don't think the world should know. I'm not kidding. This is your final warning. The body was slumped on the table like a surgeon would do before operating on a person. Some more people wearing red and black ski masks went up to the body, holding items varying from kitchen knives to cordless drills. I couldn't watch without feeling physically sick to my stomach. The men tore her apart, limb from limb, stabbing at her torso and cutting her open. I take another glance to see one of the men was having sex with a mutilated corpse. I almost immediately retch and also vomit over my keyboard, but I gain control of myself before that happens. My heart was beating like crazy. The whole situation was so fucked, and I was in way over my fucking head. By the time the men were finished, there was a literal stump of a human being left. Not that you could fucking call that a human anymore. Her head was literally torn off the neck and stuffed into her body cavity, along with one of her arms. 3 more people were brought on the screen, all of them screaming for their lives and trying to escape. One of them is shot in the leg. The other stands there shaking in place, trying not to scream again. The man holding the sign walks up to the lens of the camera and stares into it. I see his black eyes, blood spattered across his face. I breathe faster, and I actually had to look away. It was like he was staring right at me. He says something else in a foreign language, probably the same one as before. When he stops speaking, the chat window does the same. Hardly a single other post, just a chat window awaiting some response. About 20 seconds passes of him just staring into the camera after speaking. Nothing happens at first. The chat then mentioned me and Nathan by our usernames. More of them spam our names in posts that take over the scrolling message board. As soon as they mentioned our aliases, I started freaking out. I try to close the black windows, but every time that I try, the window says that the application is not responding. The live stream continues. The man staring at me and the man messages prompting me to say something. One of the few comments in proper English pops up. He's asking us to choose which one to kill first. I freeze for about 5 seconds before unplugging my computer from the wall. I didn't care about anything anymore. I just wanted to leave the site and never come back. I sat there with the blank screen in front of me for a bit before pacing around the kitchen. I was done with it. I didn't sleep at all. I was too traumatized to even think about resting after what I had seen. At the time of this happening, I was thinking about reporting the site to the police. But I, of all people, know that they can't do anything to stop this. To think that more of these sites could exist, that more people are getting gunned down and mutilated for entertainment, it's something that I can't fucking think about. Fuck. I spent 2 days talking to some close friends about this stuff, though I left out all of the details and just said I'd seen something disturbing online. They all know what I do in my free time, so they didn't think much of it, since I'd mentioned snuff films and messed up sites before. They didn't know of what Nathan and I had seen. I mustered up the courage to turn on my PC again, and I was fucking relieved to see no sign of any viruses, and most of all, no black windows scattered on my desktop. I immediately go to check if Nathan had left me any messages on Raddot. I had several messages from him, with a few files attached to the second. I was hoping to talk this whole ordeal through with him, but the files immediately caught my eye. The fucking attachments were pictures of me, stolen from my Facebook and email. Pictures of my old school, university, and even my friends here. The messages after were my addresses, emails, online aliases, and even the names of my family members. My IP address was posted at the bottom, and I realized how fucked I am. The last picture of me and my old girlfriend, with her IP address, and details pasted on top of the picture. There's no fucking way that they track me down. I take a few minutes to pull myself together before writing back. What the fuck happened? Who are you? I didn't get a response, and I still haven't to this day. He has all of my details. He knows everything about me and my family, and I don't know what else. I still don't know what has happened to him since I left that live stream. I can only pray that the information he has doesn't fall into hands of those murderous, insane motherfuckers who killed and desecrated dozens of people on the darkest part of the internet. Can't let them find me or those who I care about. I will never go back to that part of the internet again. It's not fucking safe for me or you or anyone. The police can't find them, but they can find you. Don't try and find the site. Don't try and report the site. They will do to you what they did to me. And if you think they won't find you, then remember that I was fucking invincible. Do you want to take the chance that they won't find someone like you? Don't go onto the deep web. For the sake of humanity, never seek out the people who are behind this. They'll only find you too.
I've been using the dark web for quite some time now. My favourite thing to go onto is something called Silk Road. I was buying some illegal substances off Silk Road for a while, when one day I received an inbox message on my personal Twitter account. The person talked about how I was an amateur, and I obviously didn't know how to protect my identity enough, and that they will report me to the police with information about what types of substances I was buying. When I initially called their bluff, they went on to say things like,
"Oh really? I'm old Carolyn Stevens here. Or how about Mr. Jones from your school?"
Now this really freaked me out because, well, how would he know the names of my parents and my school teacher? He was demanding money in return for not giving me up to the police. I was basically being blackmailed. And I was very nervous because this person had all my info, and I thought my Tor browser had been compromised. Later on I rationalised that I was following the Is Silk Road Up and Running Twitter account on my personal Twitter. The person assumed what I was using it for and used my real Twitter name to find out information on me and blackmail me. It ended up just blowing over after I ignored and blocked the account. But it opened my eyes though, and it was a pretty scary moment. It's kind of put me off going on Silk Road and the deep web, to be honest with you. It was too much of a close call.
I've been watching a YouTube series about deep web exploration. I won't name the series or the channel it belongs to. I'm not getting paid for advertisements. Anyway, I looked up a video on how to access said deep web. I did it fast and dirty. Not much research on what not to do. Big mistake. Let me tell you right now, using Windows on the deep web is a bad idea. That much I did know. Easy to get hacked that way, since it's the most prominent operating system. I know you can boot up a live USB on Linux clone operating system. A simple Google search can tell you how to do that. It's not as difficult as it sounds, but I figured if my laptop gets hacked, I'm screwed. I can't exactly afford to just buy a new one. So I thought I'd be smart and use my Android tablet. What a genius, right? Yeah, I know, I'm an idiot. A few VPN apps later, and I'm surfing the deep web, looking around like a little kid in an adult store. No clue what any of it means, but I'm interested in all of it. I'm aware you can find a lot of snuff and pedo rings, so I treaded carefully. Unfortunately, I stumbled upon one of the two. I'm not going to say which, but it made me sick to my stomach, and I nearly quit then and there. In fact, I did, for a few minutes. I choked it up to bad luck and resolved to be more careful. I'm not into that shit, not by a long shot. I'm not some deviant with fetishes for snuff or kids. Jeez man, that image will probably be burnt into my brain for the rest of my miserable life. Anyway, I'm browsing for a few hours. It's after 3 AM. I've heard it's better to use the deep web at night, less traffic that way. I've found a few interesting sites. There's a ton of religious stuff on there. You'd be surprised how often you find a Satanist, or at least people who claim to be Satanists. Most of the time, it's likely to be some edgy teenagers rebelling against their religious families. I won't get into my religious views, don't worry. It even has several of its own social networks and email services. No thank you, you're begging to be stalked by some creep if you use one of those. Or better yet, get scammed by catfish or honeypot. There are loads of conspiracy blogs as well, both interesting and hilarious. Everything from Justin Bieber is secretly a reptilian member of the Illuminati to leaked files on human experimentation. There was even a guy who claimed to have stumbled across interdimensional travel via falling into an actual rabbit hole, as in a literal physical hole in the ground made by a fuzzy wabbit. I'd say you can't make this stuff up, but clearly you can. I was serious about the human experimentation, by the way. You're going to want to avoid that kind of stuff. If you had any faith in humanity, you'd lose it in a heartbeat. Sweet holy hobgoblins, I hope that stuff wasn't legit. I mean, dear God. Gun shops, drug shops, celebrity nudes, pirated movies, hackers for hire, hitmen, virus programmers, script kiddies, stolen credit cards, you name it. There was even one site that sold stolen US currency that was supposed to be marked for shredding due to age or poor condition. Seems like they got a lot of business too. No wonder the economy's in the toilet. Don't get me wrong, there is a lot of legitimate stuff on there. I visited the site of a really smart dude who was creating his own custom operating system. He even had games and stuff on it. Funny things too. A mock cult made for people named Dan was among my favorites. The people that weren't maniacs seemed to be open-minded, if a little paranoid. Then I came across a site that supposedly gives you access to the webcams of people's personal laptops. I'm curious. I shouldn't have been, I know. I'm not expecting to see some cam girls here. Just some slack-jawed ding-dongs staring blankly at their screens watching Let's Plays or some shit. And that's exactly what I saw. Neckbeards, teenagers, old men looking confused, the works. Here's me, laughing at unsuspecting people. Then I saw myself. Ha! I thought sarcastically. It's tapping into my camera and trying to give me a good scare. It almost did, at first. Even so, I logged off. Kinda realized how bad what I was doing was, not to mention how illegal it was. I went back to the clear web and watched some Netflix. Then my Skype starts ringing. Another Skype number is calling me. I think maybe it's one of my friends trying it out. I've been pestering one of them for a while to get Skype so we can chat while playing games on Steam, so I pick it up. At first, there was silence. Then I heard a voice, a man's voice. He sounded like he was an older guy, 50 plus. Looking good, he said. Without a second hesitation, I hung up, deleted every deep web related app on my tablet, shut down and restarted my router. I have no freaking clue how that guy got my Skype number, and to be quite honest, I don't want to know. All I know is, if you're going to use the deep web, I beg of you, for your own safety, do more research than I did. Talk to someone who has experience in setting up a proper VPN or some other kind of anonymity. You're sure as hell not going to find it on freaking Google Play. For the past 2 months, things have constantly been changing. I've checked into almost 40 hotels every other night or so, and I always end up having to leave before I get too comfortable. Reason being, if I stay, I die. Let me explain why. Let's start off by saying I'm 25, living a very dull life. I get up, go to work, come home, repeat. It's the same cycle every day. and of course I had to do some things that just made up for it. At work, I was having a discussion with a pal. For his sake, I'll just refer to him as Rob. He brought up the deep web, something I've heard of many times before, nothing new, but he also referenced a shadow web, which seemed very interesting. He said there were gateways hidden beneath onion links, and accessing the shadow web took about 0.5 Bitcoin. Of course, my interest levels peaked along with adrenaline. I was given warnings, but I ignored them, a mistake that would soon haunt me for months to come. On my way home from work, I purchased some gift cards, and upon my return home, I exchanged the online currency for Bitcoins. Let me tell you, finding a gateway was extremely difficult, and I couldn't find a proper gateway until my 4th night of searching. I made a throwaway email and bought my pass. I emailed the pass giver for instructions on how to properly access the shadow web. Please note, it was to see if it was real. I never had any intent of purchasing any content and or participating in those godforsaken live streams. I followed the instructions and soon after found myself on the website. I couldn't help but laugh at the fact they had a huge welcome page. It was corny. Definitely unsettling though. There were several categories from people having intercourse with corpses to extreme levels of CP. It was disturbing, and I'd no intent for staying for long. Something caught my eye though. Little windows with chat boxes. I clicked on one, on impulse, and was brought to a chat room. There were several people typing, and I was prompted to make a username. Thinking I could be funny, I made my name Chris P. Bacon. The chat log read, Chris P. Bacon has joined the chat. Soon, I was greeted by many people, some with normal usernames and others with disturbing usernames, such as Black-Eyed Greg, and things even more disturbing. Again, I was over-curious, and the saying, curiosity killed the cat, was never more apparent to any situation than mine right now. So another message popped up from the user admin. The admin let us know that the show was about to start, and I already knew what kind of show this was. It had to be a live stream of murder. The show starts and at a computer desk, a younger aged woman sits, probably in her 20s, someone I would approach at a bar to buy a drink for. Down below in the chat box, everyone made sick comments about how they would rape and hurt her. Behind her, a door creaks open, and in slip 2 men, both wearing bags over their heads, eye holes and mouth holes cut out. Both men are very quiet. One turns on the girl's bedroom light, causing her to turn around and freak out. She's ambushed, and before she can react, they're tying her hands up and stripping her clothes off. Trying to be a hero, I typed into the chat box, "What the hell kind of shit is this? I'm contacting the authorities ASAP." That idea wasn't so bright, and below a PM popped up, and someone by the username Redneck3 was listing my address, name, number, and anything associated to me. I freaked out, and ever since I've been tracked. It's getting to be too long. I gotta log out for now and move location. I'll be back soon, guys.
I remember when I was about 14, I heard what the deep web was, but I never actually went onto it. From my understanding, you could basically buy drugs and weapons, things like that. But what I actually saw was a lot more evil and twisted than I could even imagine. This one time, when we were in computer science class at school, we often got bored and dicked around. One day we were talking about the deep web, and a few of my friends decided to look into how to actually get onto the deep web. When we got on there, we saw the usual things that I expected, like drugs, weapons, things like that. But the most disturbing sight we found was a comprehensive guide for how to cook women. Now, we're not talking about a short joke here. This page actually had information on what body types to use for specific cuts, how to prepare these cuts, and even worse, how to cook the girl so she lives as long as possible. After we saw that, we came straight off it. We were too scared to even look any further as to what else we could find. And to this day, I've never been back on the deep web again.